right. Have a seat however you like. And just kind of settle in and become really aware of your pelvis. So however you're sitting, whether you're cross-legged or if you're sitting on a bolster or a chair, or like I'm sitting on my heels, doesn't matter. Feel your pelvis, feel where your sit bones and your tailbone are, and kind of think of that like your anchor point, which they are in this case, and as your center of gravity. And so allow that to be nice and connected so that you can lift up from that to get a really tall, straight spine. Shoulders are going to slide down. The head should feel like it's just poised on top of the spine. And then I'd like you to take a deep breath in through your nose. And a big exhale through your mouth. Close your eyes if you're comfortable with that. And just begin to settle into your skin. Noticing where you're tight. Noticing where you're open. Noticing what maybe needs a little bit of extra attention today. Noticing what's working beautifully. Begin to notice your breath as well and start to slow it down and deepen it. So if you can do Ujjayi breathing, that'd be great. And as we listen to the sound of our breath, we can kind of feel our central nervous system powering down, which makes it easier to notice what our thought processes are like. So just take a moment, look inside your mind, see what's happening in there. And then drop down from that and look inside your heart and see what's happening in there. Notice what your energy is like at the moment, and even notice what your sense of connection feels like right now. And then let's bring our palms together in front of your heart. Take a moment and set your intention for your practice today. When you feel like you're clear about what you need, what would be best for you, then take a deep breath in. A big exhale through the mouth. Let's relax our arms, roll the shoulders back. If you can sit in a cross-legged position, that'd be great. If your legs are extended, tuck your hands underneath your thighs. If you can sit cross-legged, put your hands on your knees. We're going to begin with 3 torso circles, and I'd like you to be very mindful of what you're feeling through your low back and your hips. So go nice and slow. We'll go 3 in each direction. And I just gave you your hint about what your class is for today. It's low back and hips. So we're going to be pretty gentle with it. But having said that, as you know, sometimes hip work can be intense. So make sure you go both directions in your torso circles. Make sure you stay very connected to your breathing. If you do find yourself in a position that feels intense to you, your breath will get you through. As you finish your last torso circle, transition onto your hands and knees. Just kind of take a moment, arch around a little bit, or wag your tail, or whatever little movement you need to do here. Might be a good idea to do some traditional cat-cows to just limber up the spine a little. And then go ahead and bring your knees fairly close together. Of course, being mindful of knee issues. We're just going to do 3 positions in a child's pose. But again, please be very conscious of your knees and adapt if you need to. We're going to do these with the breaths. What I'd like you to do is on your next exhale, just take your backside to your heels, forehead down. You can leave your arms out in front of you because as you inhale, you're going to come back onto all fours. And as you exhale, you're going to kind of shift your bum to the right, like you're trying to sit on your right heel. You're going to feel your right hip come back up. As you exhale, shift over to your left heel. It still looks like a child's pose, but you're off center. Inhale back to the middle and do a traditional child's pose. Bum down, forehead down. One more time on each side. We inhale, coming back up into our cow. We exhale into an off-centered cat to the right. Inhaling, coming back up. Exhaling, kind of off-centered to the left. Inhale back to the center. And this time, do your full-on child's pose. In fact, you can even bring your hands back by your feet if you want. Forehead down, take a couple of breaths into your low back. And then we're going to scoot forward into Sphinx, which, as you know, is one of the best low back lengtheners. So in order for your low back to lengthen, you've got to have your bum soft. Big toes touch each other, heels separate, so it's kind of like you look a little pigeon-toed. Shoulders down the back, lift your chest a little, and then pull. Actually pull with your forearms. Keep your buns soft. And just imagine that you're dragging some length into your low back. Create a little more space between those lumbar vertebrae. Take one more breath. And then go ahead and come into your first down dog. Make sure your palms are flat, that your fingers are spread. You're welcome to pedal your feet a little bit if you like. Then go ahead and find stillness and press your hips back. Then I'd like you to bend your knees, and we're going to make some circles with our hips. So it's kind of like you're pushing your hips up, pressing them back, legs straighten, legs bend, hips come forward, almost like you're making an oval shape with the side of the hip. Do that a couple more times. And you can begin to walk your feet forward. Keep your knees bent. Just drape and ragdoll. Take a couple breaths here. And then inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead, stretch. Exhale, palms together in front of your heart. Inhale, reach the arms up. And exhale, fold forward. Look up halfway. And then back down. You're going to step back with your right foot. So you have a left foot forward lunge. Just hold your lunge for a moment. Allow the right knee to drop down. Put your left hand on the inside of your left knee. Roll onto the outside edge of your left foot. Gently apply some pressure. So we're just kind of starting to explore how that left hip is feeling. We're going to hold this for a few breaths. And then go ahead and just extend your left leg. Let your hips rock back. Left ankle flexes. Chest pulls forward. Go ahead and bend your left knee. Bring those arms up and overhead. Tilt your pelvis back. Let your hips move forward. Find that stretch in the front of your right hip. If it feels okay, go ahead and rotate open to your left. Arms are out like a T. That right hip continues to move forward. And then we're gonna bring both hands down inside the left foot. If you can, come onto your right forearm. You're welcome to use a block to come down onto. Maybe the left one can come down as well. And I'd like you to be really mindful here of keeping a very linear look to the left side of your body. So where your left foot is, your left shin is vertical. Don't let that knee splay open. Let the left inner thigh kind of hug in towards your torso. And maybe even consider a left hip pulling back, right hip pulling forward a little bit. It's a slight shift in the hips without changing your left foot or right knee. Take a couple more breaths here. And then come back up onto your hands. And we'll step straight back into a downward facing dog. Really stretch. Press through the palms, reach those hips back. Be really mindful of not walking your feet forward. In fact, if your heels are pretty close to the ground, slide your feet even farther back so you've got somewhere to go. Really press the hips back. Then we're going to take a big step forward with our right foot. Just come into your lunge on this side. We'll hold it for a couple of breaths. Drop your left knee down. Put your right hand on the inside of the right knee. Roll onto the outside edge of your right foot and then gently apply pressure. From here, we're going to extend the right leg. Say hello to that right hamstring. Flex the ankle and toes. And then bend your right knee. Bring the arms up and overhead. Tilt the pelvis back. Let your hips move forward until you feel a stretch on the front of your left hip. If it feels okay, go ahead and rotate open to the right. Let that left hip continue to move forward. Both hands are going to come down inside your right foot. Come on to the left forearm or a block. Maybe the right one, maybe not. Again, double check this right leg. What it wants to do is drop open. What I want you to do is the opposite. Without using your right arm, hug your right knee in towards your right shoulder, and then kind of pull the right hip back and the left hip forward. Take a couple of breaths. And then come back up onto your hands and step forward to your standing forward bend. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, bring your palms together in front of your heart. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, look up halfway. Exhale, back down. You're going to step back with your left foot this time. Nice big step back into that lunge. If it's okay with your body, left hand stays on the ground, right hand reaches for the ceiling. And I want you to play with, in this position, if you can, not changing anything about your hands or feet, but just considering pulling your right hip back and your left hip forward. Just think about pulling that right hip back. You should start to feel your hip. Take one more breath. Bring your right hand down, drop your left knee down again. I want you to put your right hand on the inside of your right knee again, just like we did the first time. Roll onto the outside edge of your right foot, press your right knee open. Now you're gonna be moving slowly and mindfully here. If your hips are not sinking forward at the moment, sink them forward. Keep pressure on your right knee and move slowly. Start hinging at your left hip, moving your hips back until you start to feel it again, but differently in that right outer hip. Keep your right ankle flexed for knee protection. Excellent. Release out of that. Bring your right knee back to meet your left knee. Give yourself a little tail wag. Those of you that like doing vinyasas, you may do one now. The rest of us are going to take a child's pose. And scoot into another spine lengthening Sphinx. By the way, if you are doing Cobra or upward facing dog, you can still lengthen your spine. Just pull a little bit. And then downward facing dog. Really pressing the tailbone up and back, resisting the urge to step the feet forward. And making sure you're pressing your heels down while the hips press back. Big step forward with your left foot. If you can, keep your right hand where it's at, and just take your left hand towards the ceiling. And then again, play with the idea of just pulling your left hip back a little bit. Go ahead and bring your left hand down, drop the right knee, put your left hand on your left knee, roll onto the outside edge of the left foot. Let your hips sink towards the mat. Gently apply pressure on that left leg, finding sensation. And then moving slowly, you start to move your hips back. I still have pressure on my knee. I'm moving through a part of the range of movement where there isn't really much sensation until I get farther back, and then I have sensation again. That's what I want you to find. Take one more breath. Good. You can bend your left knee again. Step forward to your standing forward bend. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, bring your palms together. So we're going to try and have feet pretty close together on this. We're coming into a yogic squat, but the purpose of it today is truly to lengthen out through your gluteal muscles. Now, if you've got knee issues, you're totally going to have your hands on your thighs. If you have healthy knees, but a deep squat is challenging to you, if you've got something you can hang on to, like the edge of a table that's sturdy or something, you can do that today. Some of you will be able to get all the way down anyway. And if you can't do it with a fairly narrow stance, go ahead and go wide. But just really try and have your toes pointing forward today. So I'm going to kind of angle myself here so you can see. I've got my feet about sit bone distance apart, and my toes are pointing forward. I'm going to keep my heels flat. I'm going to start poking my tailbone back and squatting down. Maybe you keep your hands on your thighs. Maybe you get your forearms to your thighs. Maybe you can let the buns go. But try and keep your feet forward and really try and lift your chest and take a couple of breaths. This stretches out the hips and it lengthens the back. So put your focus there. Breathe. And then go ahead and come all the way back up. Roll your shoulders back. Now we're going to turn sideways and just take a moderately wide step. Maybe a little wider than shoulder width, and your toes can rotate out, by the way, because we want our knees to follow our toes and we want to press the knees out. We're going to bend the knees, put our hands on our thighs, and lock both arms out, meaning absolute full extension on the arms. Take a deep breath in here. As you exhale, push against your thighs. Maybe walk the hands higher up the thighs and lock the elbows out again. Big breath in. Exhale, push against your thighs. Perhaps you can get the hands higher up, maybe not. Just be mindful. We're trying to traction the spine here. So one more time, big inhale. As you exhale, push against your thighs, lift your chest, and then release. Straighten your legs, roll your shoulders back. If you need to, you can make some wrist circles too. Good. And then we're going back down for a different traction. Go ahead and bend the knees. Hands are on the thighs with the elbows locked out again, but this time you either want your thumbs on the insides of your thighs or your fingers. It's your choice, either one's fine, because we're gonna be pressing against the insides of our thighs. Push against the inside of your left thigh and look over your right shoulder. Take a couple of breaths. Left arm should be totally straight. You should feel the left side of your spine lengthening and your left hip opening. Switch sides. Push against the inside of your right thigh. Twist and look over your left shoulder. Come on up from that. Roll your shoulders back. Good. And then just separate the heels now. So you're letting the heels move out. And what that does for you is gives you a slightly wider stance with your toes pointing directly forward. Make sure your toes are pointing forward. You're just going to grab your elbows. Hinge at your hips. Relax your neck and hang. One more breath here. And then on a big inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead. And as you exhale, step back up to the front of the mat with your feet together and your palms together. So we're going to go ahead and get into our balance because it's a nice hip opener and a spine lengthener. And you guys have done it with me before. I would love for you to stand on your left foot first because that's going to stretch your right hip and glute. It looks like a figure four. So your right ankle crosses your left knee, the ankle flexes, and that knee presses open. But your foot is on top of your thigh, okay? The arms are then up and overhead. Trust me on that, it's a counterbalance. I want you to start poking your tailbone back and bending your left knee while you keep your chest lifted, reaching forward. Keep your right ankle flexed. It's like you're trying to put your chest out over your right shin. You should feel this in your right glute. Come on up from that. Relax your arms, right foot on the ground. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So your left ankle crosses your right thigh. You flex that ankle and you press your left knee like back or out. Arms are overhead. Lift your chest. Start poking your tailbone back. It's really important that you sit back with it. That's why your arms are in front of you. It actually creates a nice counterbalance. So you're bending that right knee. You're basically trying to get horizontal over that left shin. Keep the chest lifted. And come on up. Release. Bring your feet together. Bring your palms together. Big inhale. Reach up. Exhale. Fold all the way forward. Look up and lengthen. And then back down. Step back onto your hands and knees. So again, being really mindful of knee issues. Some of this is going to be fine for you, and some of it you may have to opt out of, so just be very careful with that. We're going to go into kind of the beginnings of Gomukhasana legs, which is cow face, and you might be able to go into the whole thing or maybe not. So just know that if you don't go all the way in, it's okay. We're going to take the left knee behind the right knee. Now we've got both knees on the ground again, but we're crossed, right thighs on top. Separate your feet as much as you comfortably can. Slowly, keeping weight on your hands if you need to, start sitting your buns back. So if you've got knee issues, you might stay with part of the weight on your hands and let that be enough. For those of you who can, you'll go ahead and sit all the way down between your heels. Keep your ankles flexed. Don't let this bother the knees. Take a couple of breaths. Some of you are probably doing this easily and beautifully and feeling nothing. Some of you are probably doing it, but you're still feeling a little something in that right outer hip. And some of you may not even be all the way into it and you're still feeling it. It's really just about the sensation in that right hip. Take one more breath. And then we're just going to come out of it the way we went into it. So you're on hands and knees with your legs uncrossed. Wag your tail. We're going for the other side. So the right knee is going to come behind the left knee and you get both knees flat on the mat. As much as you can, you separate your feet and you start to sit back. And maybe you keep weight on your hands. Please do if you need to. And maybe you can sit all the way back. If you're like me and you can kind of do it, but you're still tight in the hips, where the stretch comes in for some of us is trying to get that left glute totally flat on the ground again. Now, if your knees are beautifully piled on top of each other and both of your buns are nice and flat, that just means that you are open here and you're probably not feeling anything, not because you're doing it wrong, but because you don't need the stretch as much as the rest of us. Let's come out of it the same way we went in, hands and knees, wag your tail, and then come into your child's pose. Take a couple of breaths. Those of you who would prefer a full-on vinyasa, off you go. Crawl forward onto your stomach for a sphinx. Really being mindful now that as your body has gotten warmer, it's easier to pull a little bit of length into the lumbar spine. And then downward facing dog. Press your tailbone up and back. Really stretch, stretch, stretch. I'd like you to raise your right leg in the air, bend your knee, and we're going to draw 3 circles in each direction with our right knee. So you're just getting some good range of motion in that right hip. And then put your right foot down. Just press back for a moment. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Left leg lifts. We bend the knee. 3 big circles in the air in each direction with your left knee. Just kind of playing with that range of motion. Left leg back down. Press those hips back. And then drop to your knees again. We're going to do that same kind of sitting on the heel move. Again, being mindful of knee issues, but if you can, this time, instead of doing it folded forward like we did in the child's pose, we're going to kind of do it sitting up. So you may need to modify, keep weight on the hands if you have to. Otherwise, start walking your hands back towards your knees. See if you can sit just straight back on both heels. If you need to, keep your bum up a little bit to keep your knees happy. Now, if you're somebody who can kind of sit back on the heels, lift your bum up a little bit, shift over and act like you're going to sit on your right heel. And if you're okay with that, lift your bum, keep your knees together on the ground, and start to shift your hips all the way off to the right side of your right heel. You should start to feel a little something. It's not too crazy. Come all the way back up. See if you can kind of sit your bum on top of your left heel, and then come up a little bit and sit it off to the left of the left heel, but keep your knees together and on the ground. Come back up from that, and just like that, you're gonna swivel your legs around to the front. Find your sit bones, and let's come into Dandasana for a moment. Remember, you can have your hands behind you if you need to. Take a couple of breaths here. And then we're gonna keep the left leg straight. Left leg stays straight. Right foot comes on top of the left thigh. Right ankle flexes. You're gonna notice your legs look exactly like they did when we did our standing balance, right? If you look down, it's kind of like an upside down figure 4. Keep your right ankle flexed. Lean out over your left leg. So it depends on your body. If your right hip is tight, you're feeling your right hip and your left hamstring. If you're only feeling your left hamstring, that just means that you have more supple hips. And that's cause for celebration, actually. Take one more breath. Keep your legs just like they are. Make sure that right ankle stays flexed. Hands behind you, straight spine. Left knee bends. It's kind of like a seated pigeon. If you need to, scooch up towards your left heel, but keep your chest lifted and pressing forward. Keep your right ankle flexed. What you're looking for here is sensation in your right glute, your right buttock. Take a couple breaths. Don't round your back. Keep your heart lifted, pressing forward. Now we're going to turn this into a nice deep twist. All I want you to do is let your left leg drop over to the left until the whole sole of your right foot touches the ground. It's okay if your right glute comes up off the ground. Right foot should be flat. Lift up through your chest. Your right hand is behind you and you're twisting to the right. So you can either hug the right knee or you can bring your left elbow outside of it. So you're twisting to look over your right shoulder. Now, what we're going to do from here, if it's okay with your body, is for just a few breaths, transition into stacked logs. Some people find it very easy. Some people find it nearly impossible and totally excruciating. And then some of us are somewhere in between. Bottom foot, your left ankle flexes and moves forward a little bit. Right ankle flexes and you simply slide your right shin over on top of your left shin. So your knees and ankles are stacked. Your shins are vertically stacked. There's a little triangular space right down in front of you. If you can hang out here and breathe, beautiful. If you need more, forearms to the floor in front of your shins, and you lengthen your spine. We're taking 3 breaths. You're going to unwind from that, extend both legs out, give them a good wiggle, take a breath. And then we're going to keep the right leg straight. Left ankle crosses on top of the right thigh. Left ankle stays flexed. Again, you look down, you've got that little upside down figure 4. You're going to lean out over your right leg. Again, if you feel your left hip, then it means you've got some tightness there. If you're only feeling your right hamstring, then chances are your left hip is fairly supple. One more breath here. Come on up from that, hands behind your back, press into the floor, bend your right knee, scooch up if you need to. Chest is lifted, spine is straight. It's like you're kind of trying to press your heart towards your left shin. Take a couple breaths. And then from here, we're going to transition this into that nice deep twist. So your right leg drops over to the right. The whole left foot hits the floor. It's all right if your left bun lifts. Left hand is behind you, and you're twisting to the left. We're going to come out of this and go into stacked logs. So again, your bottom leg, your right leg, you're going to flex that ankle, move it out a little bit. Let your left leg slide on top of your right leg. So you have flexed ankle over knee, knee over flexed ankle, shins are stacked, triangle space in front of you. You either sit here and breathe, or if you want more, you take your forearms to the floor in front of your shins and pull the chest forward. Either way, we got 3 breaths here. One more breath. And then come on up. Extend your legs. Give them a good wiggle. Awesome. Take a moment, reconnect your sit bones. And now I want you to be really mindful. So we're going to just lean forward over both legs, but I want it to start from your hips. I want your glutes to get the stretch first. So if you feel like you can, you're kind of trying to poke your tailbone back. We're going to tip the pelvis forward. First, getting the glutes to stretch. Then if you'd like to get some back stretch in on it, you can start to round forward. But make sure that you start by getting the glutes to stretch first. Take a couple of breaths. And then come on up from that and give your legs a good wiggle. From here, we're going to go ahead and roll on down onto our backs. Hug the knees in. Give yourself a little side to side rock. And so you guys know from previous classes with me that if you work to tighten and contract your transversus abdominis, your lower abdominal muscles, that you cause a reflex release in your low back. So guess what? We're doing some abs today. That's my way of justifying what we're about to do. We're going to start with the right thigh tightly over the left thigh. First, we're just going to give that right glute a little bit of extra love. So hug your knees into your chest. If you want to, for a couple of breaths, you can grab your feet or ankles, get 90 degrees at the knees and pull on them a little bit. Flex your feet. Just get that last little stretch in that right glute. And then we're going to move this into our abdominals. So keep your thighs crossed and just let your calves be parallel to the floor. You still have your right thigh tightly over your left. I want you to keep your head down the whole time. Put one hand on top of the other in the center of your right thigh, your top thigh. So this is kind of an isometric contraction. Take a deep breath in. Hold your breath and flatten your back. So press your low back into the mat. Now exhale, push against your right thigh. But keep your back flat, squeeze your thighs, and breathe all of your air out. Release, inhale. Hold your breath, flatten your back as you exhale, press against your right thigh. Keep your back flat, breathe all of your air out. Release, keep your legs like they are. I've got one more for you. This one we're gonna interlace hands behind the neck, point the elbows at the ceiling, and literally it's just one more. Take a deep breath in, hold your breath, flatten your back. Now exhale, crunch towards your thighs. Squeeze your inner thighs, press your back into the mat, empty your lungs. Inhale, and put your head back down. Make one big circle in the air in each direction with your knees. And as you finish out, just put your left foot back down on the mat. Now, if you need to modify for back issues, you're gonna uncross the legs. If your back leg's twisting, you're gonna keep your legs just like they are. Open the right arm out to the right, draw both knees over to the left. Remember, if this feels like it's too much for your back, uncross the legs. So whichever version you're doing, once you're there, feel spinal length, feel your right hip opening a little bit, and then just relax and breathe. Head turns to the right if that feels okay with your body. Two more breaths on this side. On your next inhale, you can bring your legs back up. If they're still crossed, uncross them. Hug your knees in, rock side to side. All of that fun stuff on the other side. So let's take left thigh tightly over right thigh. Hug your knees into your chest. If you want to, reach down to the feet or ankles, flex the ankles, 90 degrees at the knees, pull a little bit. So in other words, you're trying to get that last little bit of stretch in your left glute. Just a couple breaths here. Release the feet if you got them. Keep your legs in the air. Left thigh is still tightly crossing right. Calves are parallel to the floor. One hand on top of the other, dead center in the middle of your left thigh. Head stays down. Big breath in. Hold your breath. Flatten the back. Exhale. Push against your left thigh. Squeeze your thighs together. Keep your back flat. Breathe all of your air out. Inhale, release. Hold your breath. Flatten the back. Exhale, press. Squeeze your thighs together. Keep your navel pressing down. Push against your thigh. Breathe out. Inhale, release. Just one more by putting hands behind the neck. Elbows pointing at the ceiling. Legs are still in the air. Take a deep breath in. Hold your breath. Flatten your back. Exhale, crunch, 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 crunch towards your left thigh. Inhale, release, put your head back down. Draw one big circle in each direction in the air with your knees. And as you finish out, put your right foot back down on the mat. So again, you have the option of uncrossing your legs, or you can keep your left thigh tightly over the right thigh. But we're gonna twist by dropping both knees to the right, letting the left arm open out to the left. Pause for a moment, feel spinal length, feel your left hip opening, and then just relax into the pose, head turning to the left. 2 more breaths. On your next inhale, bring your legs back up, uncross them, hug them in, rock side to side. From here, put your feet flat on the mat, big toes touching, heels separated. We're going to do 3, just 3 therapeutic bridge lifts. So as you inhale, the hips will lift up. And as you exhale, they'll paste back down. Keep your big toes touching and your heels separated. That way your spine can lengthen while you're doing this. The arm position is optional if you want to do it. Arms come up and overhead as you're inhaling and come back down by your hips as you exhale. So here we go, just 3. Do it at your own breath rate. You inhale, you lift 1 vertebra at a time off the mat. You exhale, you paste 1 vertebra at a time back down. Last one. And if you're already done, that's cool. Just hug your knees into your chest and rock side to side. From here, I'd like you to go ahead and separate your knees. You're going to reach your arms between your knees to grab the arches of your feet. True dead bug. I want your lower legs vertical. Your hands are on the arches of the feet. Your arms are inside your knees, please. And then you're just pulling straight down. If you can, you're trying to put your tailbone back on the ground while you're applying pressure to the feet. You should feel this in your hamstrings, your glutes, and the low back. Take 1 more breath. Now, while your legs are up here in the air, what I'd like you to do is bring the soles of the feet together and grab the outside edges of your feet. And instead of pulling the heels in towards the groin, I'd like you to do the opposite. Move your heels away from your groin so you have this long, narrow diamond shape. In other words, your knees are quite open. And if you look up, your feet are basically over your face or over your head, over your throat at least. And then you're just going to pull them straight down towards you. If your back rounds, that's okay. You should feel this in your low back and sacrum. Take a couple breaths. And then just let your hands come to the outside edges of your feet so that you can explore everything you've done to open up your hips, your hamstrings, and your back today. A little happy baby time before your ultimate relaxation. When you feel like you're ready, bring your feet flat onto the mat, ankles and knees together. Do a couple of those nice breath-centered hip rolls where you drop both knees to one side on an exhale, bring them up on an inhale, and drop them the other way on an exhale. We'll just do maybe 2 or 3 on each side. When you feel like you're ready, the knees are going to drop open, soles of the feet together. We'll take a deep breath in, flatten the low back. So press your low back into the mat. Keep breathing, just lengthening those low back muscles. 1 more time, and then on your next exhale, release. Let the curve come back into your spine. Extend your legs, separate your feet wherever you want them. Make sure that your glutes, your buns, feel soft and relaxed. And then lift up between the shoulder blades and lengthen your spine a little, and then lengthen the neck a little, and bring your shoulders down a little, hands below shoulders, palms facing the sky. Take a deep breath in. Exhale through your mouth, releasing all remaining tension, closing the eyes and surrendering into this most important pose, Shavasana. So as you are releasing your body downward and releasing control of your breath, just think about how this pose really is an important part of your practice. It's not just a reward, although it is that. But this is where your body's processing what you've just done. It's like you're absorbing and assimilating your practice here, digesting it, as it were. And it's not unlike the energy of the new moon that we just had. So, you know, that saying, as above, so below, can be microcosm and macrocosm. They reflect each other. So yesterday was a new moon. It appears as though the moon goes dark. It goes into hiding. It disappears for a moment. It rests, it becomes dark, it becomes still. We also do that on a daily basis, if you think about it. Every night when we go to sleep, to a certain extent, we seem to disappear, we go dark. And it's necessary, we need that stillness, we need that rest. The same is true here in your yoga practice. So Shavasana is like that opportunity to just kind of go dark and go still and go silent and have that rest. It's a very crucial part of life. There are times in our life when we might do that for a week or a month or maybe even a year. Kind of go quiet and turn inward and take care of ourselves. These are all necessary things. So as you're lying here in your Shavasana today, kind of embody that energy of the new moon. It's not that you're not there. It's not that you don't have the capacity to shine brightly. But for this moment, for this phase, you get to go dark. You get to turn inward. You get to seemingly disappear, even though you are not. You get to rest and be quiet. just start to notice how it feels to give yourself permission, as it were, to just go quiet and still, to truly turn inward and take care of yourself. Notice not only how it feels physically, but how does it feel mentally and emotionally? In other words, just being observant, do you feel self-indulgent, or do you feel really peaceful because you know you deserve it? Just kind of notice if you have any thoughts or feelings around it. There's nothing wrong with any of it. We're just witnessing. And then start to move your fingers and toes a little bit. Start to deepen your breath. Take that deeper inhale, spread your fingers and toes. Big exhale through the mouth as you relax them. Take that deeper inhale as you stretch. And exhale and relax. Hug your knees into your chest, or if you prefer, just bend the knees with the feet flat. And when you're ready, roll to your right side. And if you can, stay there for a couple of breaths today. Just curled up in a happy little ball on your right side. And then when you feel like you're ready, go ahead and press yourself into sitting and find your nice straight spine. So today's pranayama or breath work is a little different, but you guys are all up for it. So the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to honor the new moon by doing a lunar centered breath, which means left nostril. We'll be inhaling and exhaling through the left nostril only. However, you can't use your hand to block your right nostril. I would like you to put one hand, I'm leaving it up to you to choose which. I'd like you to put one hand at your heart and one hand at your abdomen. This is a very nurturing hand position. It's a posture of self-care. And now, without using your hands, keeping one on your heart and one on your abdomen, I'd like you to imagine or sense or actually make it happen that you inhale and exhale very slowly through your left nostril only. Off you go. As you finish the breath that you're on, just allow your palms to come together in front of your heart. Just take a moment truly out of gratitude that you can practice as you do, that you have the time, that you have a body that functions so beautifully, and that you have the discipline and the dedication and the self-love to step onto your mat and to do this. Really congratulate yourself for that. And take a moment in gratitude for it. We shouldn't take it for granted. Not everyone can do this. And then take a moment in gratitude too for the capacity to rest, to go dark for a moment like the new moon, to absorb and assimilate everything that needs to be processed. And take one more huge inhale through your nose. Big exhale through the mouth. Palms to the forehead, just reminding us to be present. Palms to the lips, reminding us to speak our truth. Palms to the heart, reminding us to keep our hearts open so that we can always practice and experience kindness, compassion, and love. Thank you guys for joining me today. Namaste.